Good morning, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. I just want to go briefly over the Champions League and their terror threat. I would say my daughter was watching one of the matches in a pub nearby, and I was like, oh, just want to double check that you know that there's a terror threat, because if they can't get into the stadium, we know local transport hubs and pubs might be a target. Keep your wits about you. Got the usual rolled eyes, obviously, as you would expect. But how serious was this terror threat last night?
Well, I think it's ISIS just trying to have a bit of a call to arms. It's obviously had the attack in Moscow, and it feels that it needs to remind the West that they're still there. And of course, this is also a bit of a good side for policing and security services, because they wouldn't actually announce that they're going to attack a location. They would just do it. This is more a case of them saying, listen, we can't attack you with our armed teams, but what we want is local people to come up and support ISIS and do it. So I think it's we've got to be careful we don't give this too much publicity, but it is always a concern when you get these threats.
No, indeed. And as you say, they don't normally give us a warning about it. There might be some chatter online in forums, but not an actual warning. But again, putting out pictures of the stadium. And we know, as we've seen, you don't need to be sophisticated terror cell that's been plotting for years or have bombs. We know that, cars and knives have been used to take a huge amount of life in recent years in this country and across Europe as well. But I say it is a concern for people. Let's talk about, well, I suppose it's a lesser crime. And of course, it is a lesser crime, but it is a crime that blights our local communities and our local high streets, and that is shoplifting. The government's announced a crackdown today on shoplifting, including, they say, £55 million for facial recognition tools. My God, let's get some more tech involved, shall we? They're also saying more high-tech tagging of prolific offenders to stop them going into the stores where they have been stealing from, and also chances of fines and going to prison. I have to say, I saw this story this morning and I thought, what a load of balderdash. Is any of this ever remotely going to happen and make a single difference?
No, basically not. It's interesting. I've done a lot of work over the last couple of years with shopping centres and stadiums, but particularly around town centres. And the shops are just losing hand over fist. And it's caused by a number of things. It's caused by police officers being taken away from the high streets, from patrolling, from foot patrolling, police stations being moved 20, 30 miles away. And of course, the shops are very unable, really, to deal with shoplifters, and sometimes unwilling, to be quite frank, as well. They won't do the simple things to make things better.
Like what? Because I've spoken to the local security guards and the managers of local high street stores when they were saying to me, like, this is a nightmare. We know who's coming. Often it's organised gangs. We put some particular items out. We've got a guard right next to them. They come in, 3 or 4 of them. They get it. Our guard is being told, look, you're freelance. You get injured tackling these people, you're not going to get paid. They're on minimum wage. With all due respect, they're not willing to risk their life for some makeup being stolen in the local chemist. I mean, but I've been told, again and again by shopkeeper after shopkeeper, these people are just coming in, they're acting with impunity. Everyone knows who they are. They give the identity to the police, and the police don't do anything. And even if the police do something, these people go to court. They get a slap on the wrist. And I know we've got a couple of hundred places max left in the prison system. They ain't sending a prolific shoplifter to jail when they're not putting someone on remand who's been in the news lately, who made threats to kill.
No, and they're not frightened of the law. I mean, that's as simple as that. I think probably when we were growing up, you would be quite scared of being arrested by the police or even being caught.
As someone who was arrested for shoplifting at the age of 15, who had nightmares about that hand... This is the sort of luck I have. I'm not joking, Chris. Everyone I knew did it. First time I did it. I'm rubbish at crime, so I don't commit crime. I can still remember, I will still to this day have nightmares about that hand on my shoulder and sitting in that police cell and that talking to from a senior police officer frightened the living daylights out of me. I walk around stores holding things like this. I'm not shoplifting. I'm not shoplifting. I mean, but most people will be horrified by that. I was a kid. I got the slap on the wrist and I learnt my lesson. But that is not what's happening now.
No, it's not what's happening. But I mean, it was quite interesting because I had a conversation with a police crime commissioner who was basically victim blaming and saying, look, it's awful. It's clearly not. It's the fact that we have, over the last 20 years, taken our policing away from the high streets. We've given the criminals a free run. To some extent, shops have, and I know this for a fact, shops have reduced staff to the absolute minimum. My piece of advice was to put someone actually on the door to stop people walking out with trays of meat and bags of meat. And they weren't willing to do that because they didn't see the benefit. So stores need to do a little bit more as well. But they are the victims in this, let's be quite frank. And we have to get back to a situation where people are frightened of committing crime.
This is a mind-blowing idea, Chris. Exactly. Chris Phillips, always so good to talk to you.